We are in wisdom chapter, and within the wisdom chapter, in order to understand the concept of the emptiness or the ultimate truth of middle way school, Nagarjuna school, which is the highest or most subtle understanding, then we need to also understand also a little bit of the other school's point of view, and to be able to compare between those different schools with the reasoning logics, and therefore to understand among those different schools' explanations of what emptiness is, what ultimate truth or reality is, then we can see the differences and we can compare, and then we can understand more precisely, more subtle level, and some of the difficult points, and in order to have that understanding. So we have been the Shantideva, the author, has been going through, refuting and or in the discussions with the other schools, and especially at the moment for last many verses, back and forth between the mind-only schools and the middle way schools. So I think we are in that, and in the last verses, where it is explained, when you are in through the understanding of emptiness on the path, and as when someone has that direct realization and understanding of ultimate truth or emptiness, and then when they are in deep meditations in the meditative equipoise, then all the concepts and all the thoughts, all the dualistics totally pacify and totally disappear in that state of mind, and but of course, when you are not fully enlightened, when you come out of that meditative state, then of course again there is appearance of the dualistic view again. When you open your eyes, then again you see there is a dualistic view. You see the objects separate from the subject. Then you see also the object itself, the conventional object, as well as you see the object appearing as inherent and truly existence, But while there is that appearance, at the same time, the practitioner who have that realizing the emptiness, they don't grasp to that appearance, or they don't believe that appearance, and they don't have the grasping, because they know that is not the reality, even though that is the appearance. So one will not be deceived by the appearance, because the reality is a bit different from that appearance itself. And as we progress over the meditation on the path, then when someone achieves fully enlightened state, then in that wisdom dharmakaya state, enlightened wisdom dharmakaya state, then while again everything pacify and within that state of mind, at the same time, the Buddhas, because the Buddha is not only free from the delusion, but also free from all the subtle obscurations. And therefore, Buddha is at the same time, even without any thoughts, the Buddha is able to, work for the welfare of sentient beings and benefit all sentient beings. So that is the incredible qualities of the Buddhas, where he is able to functions both meditative equipoise and post-meditative equipoise at the same time, simultaneously. While in a deep meditations of emptiness, in that meditative equipoise, that is free from all, free of all the dualistic view and appearance. At the same time, Buddha is able to feel the love, the compassion, the bodhicitta towards all sentient beings. At the same time, he's able to manifest and benefit all sentient beings in whatever way is most beneficial. And so that is the special functioning of the So I guess in relation to that, which verse I think we finished, verse number 34, yeah?
I believe we finished 35, Geshe.
Okay. Yeah. So so then in 36, when a charmer against a poison dies after completing a pillar, that pillar neutralized poisons, and like that even a long time after his death. Likewise, the pillar of jhana completed in according to the Bodhisattva way of life accomplish all task, even when the Bodhisattva has passed into nirvana. So basically what it is saying is when someone like Buddha, when someone achieves fully enlightenment, and if there is no concept at all in that enlightenment, because as in last verse, it mentions when you achieve fully enlightenment, then there is no more concept. And there is no more thought of, I want to help, I want to benefit. Everything is spontaneous, natural, unlike like us. For ordinary sentient beings, it depends on our intentions, motivation that drive us to do something, that like, I want to help, I want to do something, I want to benefit, I want to meditate. So we have, sometimes it is more subtle level, sometimes it's more gross level, sometimes it's more subtle, and even sometimes it's more like subconscious level. But there is that thoughts that I want to do in this. In a Buddha's case, it doesn't depend on that kind of thoughts. That thought is concept. There's no more concept. So everything Buddha does is spontaneous. And so then if that is the case, if the Buddhas does not have any kind of all thoughts have been pacified, so then it is saying, how can, if we make an offering to a Buddha, how can we, if we, let's say if we pay homage, if we make offerings and so forth to the Buddha, how can we, how it is possible to create merit and virtues if the Buddha does not have any kind of thought and all the thought has been pacified? So that questions arises, and then this is the answer to that questions. And basically, the first verse is in relation to one of the story, kind of his stories, taking a story, So if when you achieve, if there is, if there is no thoughts, then of course it's saying there is no prayer. And so if there is no prayer, by making a prayer, how can we then? And so there is a Brahman, the story in India, there's a Brahman called Sanku, so. And he has passed away a long time ago, but there is a Garuda reliquary or statues that is made that holds the relic of that teacher, the Brahman Sanghu, and which has been consecrated, and so it has been consecrated with the force of mantras. So because of that, prayers, mantras, the intentions, the prayers that they have made. So it is said, when someone make some kind of prayer request to that, then if someone has been affected by some poison, then through that it will be naturalized. So I think that is what some others, there is a belief of that, there is belief of that. So that is being giving an example. That is being given examples, and so therefore, similarly, that is what it's saying. So in similarly, when someone's when we create or make a statues or stupas of the Buddhas, which contains the relic, and that stupa is made according to the actions and prayers, that has made by when the during the Bodhisattvas on the path, during the Bodhisattva's path, the Bodhisattva has made incredible, so many different motivations, intentions, prayer, dedications for so many sentient beings, or all sentient beings, And so due to that, due to the power of that, the Bodhisattva's incredible prayers, dedications, the intention, motivation that they have made during as Bodhisattva during the path. So when they achieve nirvana, when the Bodhisattvas achieve non-abiding nirvana or the Buddha, and even when there is no more a concept, but through those power of the prayer, dedications, and their practice, as well as the devotions of the sentient beings who make homage or offerings to the stupas, due to the devotions, the faith, due to the actions, the karma of sentient being all together, then one can create one is able to create a marriage, you know. So therefore, and so then the questions comes, you know, so if that, how could a worship offer to something that has not conscious be fruitful, because it is taught? And so again, that question comes, how can we create a merit and virtues by making offering to such as stupa, where there is no consciousness or mind? And so the answer, because it is taught, it is same in whether he is present or has passed into nirvana. And so in one of the sutras, is called Champasingi, the sutra of, you know, the sound of the lion, compassionate lion. In that, it is said, you know, the Buddha said, whether you make homage and offering to the Buddha directly, personally, when Buddha is present, or such as after Buddha passed away, such as stupas that has the Buddha's relics that represent the Buddha. If you make homage and offering to that, one achieve, or one create in same merit and virtues equally in both, you know. So the Buddha has said in sutra by himself, you know. So again, even though Buddha's, that particular body, he has left that body when he died, passed away in parinirvana, like more than 2,600 years ago, but his mind is everywhere. His consciousness is everywhere. And therefore, wherever his consciousness is, he's there. And so therefore, even in, even the body is no more there. And to ordinary beings, it seems the Buddha is not there, but actually the Buddha is present even in that, in all objects, because the omniscient mind is in there. Wherever the mind is there, the Buddha is there. You know, so in that way, then it seems Buddha is not present, but actually he isn't present. You know. According to the scriptures, effect of the worship or offering do exist, whether conventionally or ultimately, in the same way that worship offered to the true Buddha is said to be fruitful. Okay. And so yeah, I think we already kind of went. What it is saying, according to the scriptures, for example, according to the some of the scriptures of the Hinayanas, they says, they believe the Buddha is truly existent, and to a truly existing Buddha, if truly existing sentient beings make offerings, then truly existing merit would be created. So he's saying that is what you explain, and so here he's saying also in a mind only school here, ultimately mean in mind-only school, even though none of those things exist inherently or truly, and therefore they all are like illusions. But even though they all are illusions, by illusion like sentient beings, making a illusion like offering to illusion like a Buddha, we create illusion like merit, and therefore there is a illusion like fruitful or and so therefore that is what is ultimately in same way the worship offered to Buddha with fruitful, so so from here there is a discussions about the difference between some of the schools of the such as Babasika and Sotanirga schools and minority school and middle way school. They have a difference in terms of presenting the selflessness. In two of the lower schools of the Babasika and Sotanirga school, they present the selflessness of persons, but they don't accept selflessness of phenomena. Okay, so there is no selflessness. They say there is a selflessness of person, but there is no selflessness of phenomena. Whereas the higher school of minority school and middle school, they say there is a selflessness of person as well as selflessness of phenomena. And even when they talk about selflessness of persons, even though they say same thing, selflessness of person, but their presentation of what selflessness of person means, there's a difference. The way the two schools, lower school present the selfless person is much more gross level, according to the higher mind-only school and according to the mind-only school and middle way school. So their presentation of selfless persons is much more gross, and it is not the most subtle. And so therefore that understanding of selflessness, according to the the lower school, cannot destroy the self-grasping, the subtle self-grasping. And so that is the way so therefore there is some difference on that. And so that is where the discussions is coming. Because until here, the middle way school has been trying to convince or trying to say, one need to have the understanding or realization of emptiness in order to overcome all the delusion and especially fundamental ignorance. And to that, then the other schools are saying it is not necessary to achieve liberation or nirvana to have the realization of emptiness, as you mentioned. So that is where question comes. Liberation comes from understanding the Four Noble Truths, and especially within the Four Noble Truths, each noble truth has four different features and characteristics, and even within that, the noble truth of the suffering, then the four characteristics are, all the conditions, phenomena, impermanent, all the contaminated experience are suffering, all the phenomena are selflessness and empty, and nirvana and peaceful. So that, and so he's saying when you have that understanding, realization of that, such as impermanent and that selflessness, one can achieve liberation. So therefore, where is that? Noble truth. So what is the point of perceiving emptiness? So therefore, there's no reason to have a realization of emptiness in order to achieve liberation. Just by having a realization of the Four Noble Truth that is presented in lower school of thought, such as Abhidhamma Kosha, just by that, one can achieve liberation. So that is the, and then Madhyamika says, because the scripture states that there is no awakening without this path. And so then first is trying to say, in some of the Buddha's, such as the sutras of Prasnaparamita. In Prasnaparamita, it has explained that without the realization of emptiness, one cannot achieve the liberation of hearer, liberation of solitary realizer, and the non-abiding liberation of fully enlightened, the Bodhisattvas or enlightenment. So, so therefore, he's saying so Madhyamika is saying, in those sutras, Buddha has clearly explained that one cannot achieve liberation without realizing the emptiness, and especially the emptiness of phenomena, all phenomena. And so then the other school says, you cannot say that the Buddha said in those scriptures that if without that realization that one cannot achieve liberations, because the very sutra that you are trying to, the scripture or the very sutra that you rely on to say that Buddha has said that, is saying that sutra is not authentic. And they are saying they have doubt whether the sutra has been said by the Buddha himself. So they are saying, so they say the Mahayana sutras, such as the Prasnaparamita sutras, are not even taught by the Buddhas. So even that is not taught by the Buddhas, that is not Buddha's teaching. So then how can you bring and say that Buddha has said that by quoting from that sutra, Yeah. So then now the middle way schools, Madhyamika is now making a point, same point that they made to him. So then how can you say also the scriptures and the sutra that you said those are the Buddha's scriptures? How can also you say those are the Buddha's authentic sutras and those are Buddha's authentic teachings? How can you say also your own teachings, the very teachings that you rely on as the Buddha's sutras or Buddha's authentic, how can you authentify that as well? And so to that, then they come with this answer, because it is authenticated, authenticated and it is authentic because both you and we accept that those sutras as authentic. such as the first turning wheel of the Dharma, the sutta, such as the teachings, such as the teaching of first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, those teachings are accepted as the Buddha's teachings by both the lower school and as a higher schools. They all accept those as the Buddha. So they say, so that is authentic. The sutra we rely on are those Buddha's authentic sutra, because you also accept it, we also accept it. So therefore, so then to that, then it is not authenticated by you from the beginning. So then it is saying, you believed and accept those are the Buddha's teaching much more later after you have studies. You met the Dharma and you started to have studied the Dharma, and through meeting the Dharma and have studied, then you begin to know those are the Buddha's teaching, and that is how, and then you started to believe and accept. But before that, you didn't accept. Before you met the Dharma, when you are born, you didn't know anything about those teachings. At the very beginning, when you are born, or even after being born, before you met the Dharma, you didn't know about those teachings. So therefore, you didn't accept those as Buddha's teaching. You didn't know about those Buddhas. You didn't believe those are Buddha's teachings. So does that mean before that, are they not authentic sutras? Because at that time, you didn't accept, you didn't believe that. And so that means at that time, both of us has not accepted that. Just because we didn't both accept, does that means at that time it is not authentic? So one kind of argument is that. And so it is saying, so in that cases, the 42, apply the same faith and respect to the Mahayana as you do to it. So there's in the same way, not everyone have to accept in order the Buddha's teachings to be authenticated. Not everyone has to accept and believe that. And so same way, just because you didn't believe before, that doesn't mean the Buddha's teachings are not authentic at that time. In the same way, even though not everyone might believe and accept those such as the Sutra of Prajnaparamita as a Buddha's own teachings and sutras, that doesn't make those are not authentic Buddha's teachings. And with that, so therefore, just as you apply same faith and respect to your such as sutras, such as first turning wheel of Dharma as Buddha's authentic teaching, you should also accept Mahayana teachings as Buddha's authentic teachings. If something is true because it exists by two different parties, then Vedas and light would also be true. So then it is saying, if whether it's true or not, if it is based on how many people accept or not, or two parties accept or not, then they are saying some of the teachings, Vedas are some of the teachings that are there before the Buddhas came, some of the earlier school of thoughts, which Buddha negated many of the concepts from those teachings. So, because also there are many schools who accept those teachings, does that authenticate those are truth? So basically, our argument is, something to be truth. It doesn't depend on whether two parties accept or not, or whether one party accept or two parties accept, or the four parties accept. It doesn't depend on that. It doesn't depend on how many different parties accept or not. It could be 10 parties does not accept, but that could be false. Just one party might accept and 10 parties might not accept, but that doesn't mean because 10 parties does not accept, that doesn't mean what they believe is truth, and the only one party which accept is not true, and it doesn't mean that it's not true. So that is. So again, they make again an argument, you know, in verse number, the lower school make again an argument. If you object, they say, you know, the Mahayana teachings are not really Buddha's teachings because they are controversial, because not everyone believes that, not all the Buddhists believe those are Buddha's true teaching and sutras, and there is a lot of argument on that, and so then to that the middle way swing. If you object the Buddha's that the Mahayana is controversial, then if that is the case, then the Mahayana is saying, then reject your own scriptures because it is also contacted by heterodox groups, and because part of your own scriptures are contacted by your own people and others. So then he's saying, then they are saying, you know, then how can you also say your own teachings, which you believe as authentic, as that being as authentic, because also many of those non-school Buddhist school refute your schools of teachings, and within your schools, because even the Babasika, it has 18 subdivisions. Babasika also has it kind of over the time it kind of divide into 18 different categories. So there is 18 subdivisions. Within those 18 subdivisions, not in all the different points, but in some point they have an argument. They don't agree in everything. They have disagreement, and so they're saying then also you have disagreement among your 18 different schools in certain points. So that how if just because there is some argument on certain point, that does not take away that teaching is not authentic. That doesn't take away that teaching is not taught by the Buddhas. If that is the case, then also your teaching will be also not authentic and not being teaching, because also that your teaching also has. So that is. So here, you know, what we see is Shantideva, the authors, defending that the Mahayana teachings are authentic Buddha's teachings. And not only Shantideva, so therefore there are a lot of I guess misunderstanding, you can say, about whether the Buddha's teachings or Mahayana teaching are actually Buddha's own teaching or not. There are a lot of schools, there are a lot of people who think Mahayana teachings were developed much later by Nagarjunas, the Indian masters such as Nagarjunas, Asangas, and many of those Mahayana teachers, and that it was not, those Mahayana teachings were not actually taught by Buddha himself. There is some, and there were people who thought about that. Now, even now, there are a lot of people who think. Even now, sometimes, you know, even now, there are some scholars, modern scholars, who might think the Buddha's, the Mahayana teachings were developed much more later, and they were not taught by Buddha himself. And especially Tantric teachings were much more developed, even much later, and they were not taught by the Buddha himself. And those discussions are not only now, or there are some misunderstanding of that, not only now, even at the time, even in Nagarjuna's time, there was those views. So therefore, also Nagarjuna in his Precious Garland, also he defend how the Mahayana teachings are taught by the Buddha. Maitreya, Asanga, also in their writing, they defend that the Mahayana teaching were taught by Buddha. And also here you see Shantideva defending this misconception that the Mahayana teaching were not taught by Buddha. So that is where this discussion comes. I think maybe we'll discuss a little bit later, further, later, and we can have discussions if there is any questions. So yeah, I think we will have a short break now. 10 minutes break, okay? And then when we come, we'll continue. There is some there are people who kind of believe the actual teaching that was taught by Buddha are those in the Pali language, and those teachings, the Mahayana, which are in a Sanskrit language, in the past as well as even now, who thinks those are not taught by Buddha, but it was developed much more later by other masters. And there continue to be still people who believe that, If that is the case, then even in among the Pali traditions, the teaching in Pali tradition, or according to the Babasika and Soptandrika, they also explain about three enlightenment: the enlightenment of solitary realizers and enlightenment of the Bodhisattvas. They also explain three enlightenment and three paths. But if the Mahayana teaching was not taught by Buddha, then by relying on those teachings of the Babasika, Soptandrika, those who are all in Pali traditions, then even though you might be able to achieve liberations, but it is hard to achieve fully enlightenment because they don't explain so detailed on all the Bodhisattva's path in terms of the practice of the six perfections and bodhicitta. There is not so much. If you read those teachings, those scriptures, there is not so much explanations of how to develop bodhicittas and how to engage in the practice of six perfection in such detail as you see in Mahayana's teachings. And so therefore, it would be very difficult just by that small information and the limited practice of. And even in terms of emptiness, even though they explain about selflessness, but there is not such a deep, precise explanation as you find in the Mahayana's teachings by Nagarjuna and Aryadeva, Chandrakirtis, Shantideva, and all of those masters. And so, therefore, even in comes the wisdom, and so therefore, it will be difficult. It will be difficult to say that one can achieve enlightenment on the basis of also the path that is been explained so in such a not so detailed and extensive in those. And whereas in Mahayana, that, you know, also one of the reason also is there is a, you know, not understanding about many possibilities, because, you know, in Mahayana teachings, they explain so many of things about which seems inconceivable for us ordinary minds. So therefore, that is one of the things sometimes people struggles. Let's say examples. For examples, you know, it is in a general, to the general public, the Buddha taught those teachings that is presented in Pali traditions now, or Pali translations, such as, you know, First Turning Wheel of the Dharma, teaching on Four Noble Truths, and so forth. Those teachings were given to the public, so everyone kind. And the teachings such as Prasnaparabhida, Mahayana teachings, were not given so commonly to all the public. They were only given to certain more, you know, more sharp faculties, those who have more sharp faculties, those who have more merit, and those who have more ripening of the karma. And so for those selective small number of the disciples, then he gave those Mahayana teaching, and those who are not given so publicly like that. And those, among those disciples who were part of those Mahayana teachings, such as Prasnaparamita Sutra, even the Heart Sutra, for example, you know, there are, of course, Bodhisattvas among the disciples, such as Avalokiteshvara and other Bodhisattvas. Some of them in human form, some of them in not human form, in a God form, and as well as in the audience, there are also other non-human beings, different non-human beings, and also others, and they all are, you know, more sharp-minded, and they are more karmically more ripened, and for that, so it is a more smaller number of, and so those teachings were not given publicly, you know, and so therefore, and then when it comes to the tantric teachings, then the audience even gets more smaller. The disciple is even more smaller, because those are the disciples who are even more developed and more sharp and karmically more ripened than even though those the disciple of Prasnaparamita. And even for that, at the very beginning, Buddha gave some empowerment teachings in that form of within that monk's robe. And then again, as to some disciples who are even more advanced in that, then he manifests into a different form, such as Vajradhara, and then he gives the teachings, empowerment and teaching on that. And for those who have developed even further, for those highest yoga tantric practitioner of disciples, then he manifests in the deity of that particular mandala, and then give the empowerment, the teachings, and that. And so those are given to very selective disciples. Even in our times, you know, some of the initiations given by His Holiness or others lamas, they wouldn't take more than 25 audience or disciples. They wouldn't give to big group at all. They will only give in some initiations. there can't be more than 3 persons. So they give only to 3 persons maximum. Sometimes they give to 1-to-1, sometimes 2 persons, sometimes 3 persons, and they don't give more than 3 persons. And some of them maximum disciple will be only 25. And again, it is still that kind of traditions, lineage is still carry on now. And so just because those empowerment or teaching, because they were not given publicly, public doesn't know it. And sometimes many of those teachings are not even in the written, they are passed orally, and so therefore, so it is not so well known. So because it's not so well known, because it is not so sometimes then you think it is not, but it doesn't mean that just because it has not been so public doesn't mean that the teacher had that is not authentic teaching, and that's not given by the teachers. As I said, even in the now, there are certain teachings, certain instructions, certain teachings that His Holiness or other teachers will give only to very small number of disciples, according to their level of realizations, according to their karmic ripening, according to many conditions come together. And so, and on the other hand, there are a lot of other advice, instruction, teaching that His Holiness give publicly to everyone, and so those teachings is well recorded, and whereas those teaching that He give very selective, those apart from those people who are there, nobody, other people doesn't really have idea, So if the other person, especially if they don't write, then you don't even know when the oral transmission. And so so that is the history, if we understand historically how it came into. And over the time, during the Nagarjuna and Asanga, then Mahayana teaching started to become more common, because they started writing about that, and there's more writing, there's more discussions. It doesn't mean there were no Mahayana practitioner before that, but there were more hidden Mahayana practitioner, not so many great teachers who were well known, but they are. And then during that time, they kind of they flourish, Nagarjuna, Asanga, then, and then it became more common, And same with the Tantric teachings, During the Nagarjuna's time, Nagarjuna has written some commentaries on Tantra, as well as Chandrakiri, and but also it was not so well known as it is known now. And it is only during the around 11th century that Tantric teaching become more and more well known, and more people started, and so therefore there is more writing about Tantric during that time, and so therefore it seems like it was developed later, because at that time more practitioners and more teachers started to write about them. And so there's more kind of sources there. And so because there's more sources, more people begin to know. And on the basis of that, then they think maybe those are developed much later, but that is not the case. Those teachings are already there, but there was not so many commentaries, not so many writing by so many masters, so that it didn't become so much well known. And so it was kept more secretly within the selective practitioners of those, And now, if you see now it is everywhere, because of all this media, now things that you wouldn't have access before. You have everything access now with so many books. Sometimes you get confused, and so many information in all this, medias, different forums, So, but that doesn't mean those teachings were not there before and practitioners were not there. It just become, as we develop more, it become more and more accessible, and more people begin to know about it. And so that is another kind of, argument that Nagarjuna make, is interesting point that he makes. One of the difference between the lower schools and Mahayana is also, in the lower schools, they think once you achieve nirvana and fully enlightenment, then there is no continuity of the consciousness. So therefore, there is no coming back of the Arhat. There is no coming back of the Buddha. Once you achieve Buddha, then it's gone. They don't have the concept of the four kayas, the four form of the bodies of the Buddhas. They don't have that understanding. And so therefore, on the other hand, on the Mahayanas, even after nirvana, even after enlightenment, the consciousness continue, and therefore the Buddha will again appear until all continue to appear and to help and benefit sentient beings again and again, and if that is truth, and if that is possible, then of course, the Buddha, certain master or individuals, practitioner, highly developed, they can still continue to receive teaching from the Buddha directly. So even though the historical Buddha, in ordinary aspect, he is passed away, but still someone can have highly developed bodhisattvas or practitioner can have access directly to the Buddha and continue to receive empowerment or teachings. And so therefore, those also teachings are authentic teaching from the Buddha. And that can still continue to happen now. It is continue to happen. It is possible to continue to happen now. And so, and one of the things, one of my personal feelings, my personal feeling is, it doesn't matter whether those Mahayana teachings, whether taught by Buddha or not, is it helpful to us or not? That is the point. If those Mahayana teachings, whether it is taught by Buddha himself or whether it was developed later by Nagarjuna, Asanga, or other masters, as long as it's helping us in our practice, I'm okay for that. I'm okay for that. Whether it is taught by Buddha, whether it is taught by another Bodhisattva, whether it is taught by someone else, if those are so sometimes I feel those discussions, of course, because we are following those verses, we have to go through it. But otherwise, to me personally, it doesn't seem so important, practical level, If anyone has some, even now, anyone, even not enlightened, even someone, ordinary person, if they have some knowledge, if they can offer some knowledge and wisdom to help to deal with our mind, I will take it. If the science, through the science, if they are able to come with certain technique, certain method to improve our mind, our emotions, I will take it. It doesn't matter who said that, who doesn't say that, who gave or not. As long as it's helpful, beneficial, we take it. And I think that is the main point. But of course, at the moment we are going through this verses because we are following verses, and that is why, you know, as I mentioned before, when I when I was teaching in Santa Fe, I skipped most of those, you know. I just because I thought people will, some people very much like it, you know, and then there are people who thinks, who find difficult to follow each of those different argument back and forth, and also they don't see the importance or meaning of that, and so they lose the interest. And so yeah, I think maybe we could go a few verses. Verse number 44, you know, teaching has its roots in the monkhood. So it's not just here, monkhood is not just an ordinary monk, arhat, you know, arhat monk, you know. And then the monkhood is not on the firm footing. So basically it is saying, you know, the purpose of the teachings, the essence of the teachings, the purpose of the teachings is to achieve liberations, whether it is an individual liberation or whether it is a non-abiding liberation or fully enlightenment. Basically, the essence and the reason and the meaning of the teaching is for the individuals, the sentient beings, to achieve either individual arhat, liberation, or for the bodhisattvas to achieve Buddhahood, you know, non-abiding liberations, you know. But, you know, if you don't have realization and emptiness, then the person will have a grasping, of truly inherently existing of the graspings. And as long as there's graspings, then, you know, for those whose mind are subject to grasping, nirvana is not on a firm footing either, you know. And so therefore, nirvana is not possible, you know. As long as you're grasping, then nirvana is not possible. As long as your mind is grasping, and in order to overcome the grasping of the truly existence, the grasping or truly existent, grasping or inherently existing self and phenomena, then you need to have a realization of emptiness that realize self and the person and all phenomena are empty of inherently existence, empty of truly existence. So you need to have that realization, that emptiness. Without that emptiness, without realization that emptiness, then you cannot overcome and destroy that fundamental ignorance of grasping. And if you cannot overcome that fundamental grasping of ignorance or ignorance of grasping, then you cannot overcome all the other delusions that arise due to that. And if you cannot overcome the delusions, then you cannot overcome the contaminated karma that will create due to that delusions. And if we cannot overcome that contaminated karma, then we'll continue to take rebirth within the samsara, and therefore liberation will be not possible. Nirvana will be not possible. And so therefore, again, here is saying, why realization of emptiness is not only necessary to achieve fully enlightenment, but it is necessary and must even to achieve individual liberations. Without that without the realization of emptiness, there wouldn't be one who couldn't achieve liberation or arhat, And if we cannot achieve that, then the purpose of the teachings does not serve, the essence, the purpose of the teaching does not serve. The main purpose is being not served, So this is among the schools, among the different schools of the different Buddhist schools, there is a different view on that. Apart from Prasangika, middle way school, all other schools, they believe or they accept, that in order to achieve liberations, you need to have a realization of selflessness of persons, but you don't need to have a realizations of selflessness of phenomena or emptiness. Whereas the Prasangikas, they say, not only you need to have realization of selflessness of person, but you also need to have the realization of emptiness of the phenomena, the emptiness of phenomena and emptiness of person. You need to have that both realization of emptiness of person as well as emptiness of phenomena. Without that, you cannot achieve nirvana. And so there is that difference. And so that is where it's coming, this Prasangika point of view. And even when we talk about, selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena, again, as I mentioned, I think last week or this week, the two lower school, they don't have the concept of selflessness of phenomena. They only have concept of selflessness of persons. And then the higher schools such as Mind-only school, Sotantrika, Madhyamika, and Prasangika, they all have concept of the selflessness of person as well as selflessness of phenomena. And in other schools, the concept of selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena, those who believe selflessness of phenomena, is a very different, very different meaning. What does the selflessness of person mean? What does selflessness of phenomena mean? There's very different and very is a different meanings and different. The certain person is much growth and selflessness of phenomena is more subtle. Whereas Prasangika, the selfless person and selflessness of phenomena, they are same. It is just only different object of the selflessness, because one is the object is person and one is object is the phenomena. Otherwise, in terms of empty or being inherently existing, they are same. So therefore, that's why I don't know whether I'm again giving too much information and complicating even more. But that is one of the things, that personally, as me, and I think maybe also many other teachers, maybe we struggle of that. How much information should we share? Sometimes sharing too much information make more complex, too much headache when someone does not have some background or some studies of that. Then you get even more confused. And but sometimes those for some other students, they like to hear more and more kind of more details or more information. So that is always the kind of a little bit of kind of struggles, how much to share, how much not to share, that part. So anyway, I think we will stop here today, and then we will do the dedications. Yeah.